Hey everybody, I figured I'd do an abridged part two of what we just did in regards to 3D masking. And Jack and I, after we did the video, we were messing around with the preference pass inside of Maya. We found it's pretty interesting when we get into the relight tools what happens when you bring in that preference pass. And I also apologize, I've been naming these things wrong. What you should have in regards to the proper naming of this is you have your normals, okay, and then you have your Pref Pass, which is point reference pass, which technically is just the world point coordinates baked onto the character at a specific baked texture reference, okay, as we did in the neutral poles inside of Maya in the last demonstration. And then you have the world position. So if you remember, the Pref is baked on there, and then the world position is not baked, but actually just kind of points in 3D space that's going through this. Commonly, this is the pass you use for relight tool. The world position pass and the normals pass. That's the two combos where you're doing relighting. So in this case, as you can see, I can come in here and show you that I'm just shuffling in the world position, and then I'm shuffling in the normals and putting that just to see this in position pass. Now, you'll see he's got some kind of a ghosting there, and that's just the fact that we need to unpremult those passes to get that artifact out of there. And then we're going to set this to all. So now we have everything working correctly on that end. All right. So, and then we could also do that to other passes as well. I'm not going to kind of play with that. I'll just show you a demo. But this is commonly how you would relight your scene, and then you have your lights, right? And, the creature would walk into a light or something like that, which is kind of crazy. And then your relight tool, if we go ahead and kind of look at that, go back to my RGBA, you can see that as we kind of go through this, the light itself is there in position. So if we kind of take a look at the scene here, he's got that light in his face, and then there comes a point where if we get to this frame specifically, and we go to the relight tool, and here's the thing, we also have to put the relight tool to these options as well. So I'll put this to world position. So now if you go ahead and see, he is actually going to kind of come in and out of the light. And all of this lighting scenario gets kind of added on as an additional spec pass, but this is him kind of walking through lights or walking past lights. But what's really, really interesting about if you decide to take, instead of shuffling in the world position pass for the world, for the input for the position, we choose the Pref Pass. And a really peculiar thing happens here. Go ahead and kind of take a look. Is if I go ahead and take a look at this, I think this might be because this is messed up as well. I'm not sure here. Let's see. Okay, so I'll turn that off. Bit strange, whatever. It has to do with unpremultiplying the anti-aliased edge or whatever. So anyway, instead of seeing the character move in the 3D space, what you see are just the sort of like that frame that we chose to do that baked texture reference, and then this kind of stays frozen. And now you're kind of getting an idea as far as how those masks we're using in the last lesson, because although you're kind of putting these points in a 3D space on a static model, and they're all orientated correctly, that's really what you're doing. Now, what are the sort of flaws of this process are kind of seen in Maya's relight tool, because lights are going to, when we're using masking, we were just kind of masking on a specific area. It wasn't affecting the opposite area unless we made the radius bigger or whatever. But what you can see here, if I put this, put this in the scene, is I have a light. I'll put this light like right under his hand. So if I needed to, if his hand needed to glow because all of a sudden a red orb or something would appear in his arm, I can go ahead and put that light here. And this is not only just sort of a system that is working beyond just a masking tool, but it's actually lighting the hand, making somewhat, fake. Again, there is no shadows in scanline render, but FYI. And you can also put spotlights right facing towards the face if his face is supposed to light up, and then I put another blue light here. So what you get when you go to the relight tool is the character is still going to go through the animation. He's not frozen, but you can see if I go to the relight tool and switch this from position pass from world to pref, you got to change this as well, obviously. is now those, everything is sticking on there. So at this point, you can animate this light, right, in the shot to maybe, turn on or whatever, grow in intensity, right? So I can go ahead and take this light. The intensity is pretty high, and I'll just put this back down to 0 as a keyframe. Now you can see that his hand is just turning on and so forth. So it is kind of interesting to see the position pass play out. And again, it does help you kind of understand what's going on in the preference pass as we kind of go through this. So then you can kind of merge this on over it with the top. So just to be aware, that's the reality of using that preference if you want to do relighting. Again, one of the flaws I wanted to show was that if I came into this scene here and I took this light, right, and then I made it really intense, right, so if I go back to my relight tool here, and I could just, I'll break the intensity here, so let's say no animation, and I'll just turn this up really, 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 really high. Now, because that's on there, if the light here is affecting it, the light still remains on the side of his body. So you got to kind of keep, if you're going to do this stuff, keep it localized and not, so that it doesn't bleed over to the other side unless you want that. So it's, again, totally up to you. The other tool I just want to show you really quickly, some of you are probably familiar with it. Again, these two tools, Relight Simple and Relight BBR, are two relight tools inside the Nuke Survival Toolkit. Nothing but a treasure trove of stuff inside that toolkit, and it's good to kind of do some exploring. In this case, I shuffled out the actual normals pass, and then you plug in the beetle. This is for really quick stuff based on angle. So the relight tool, you have the light, the Z direction, the X and Y direction in here, which you can kind of play with, and then you can change the color to whatever color you want as far as this, and then you can go ahead and put the kind of plus it over. And technically, when you see specularity is usually an opacity of the specularity, so it's like a mix. And then shininess kind of crushes the blacks and whites of that highlight. So the more shininess you get, the more crushed it is, and the less you kind of bring it down like that. And then hence you get a really quick, relight. And then BB has the option of doing a mask, okay? And then you have diffuse and spec in here. So if I go ahead and put my viewer to this, you can see I can have diffuse and spec options, and you can change the light color. And you can see this is the diffuse color versus the specular color. So if I have both on, this one, again, I can change to whatever value here. And then the spec color, I can change as well to something else. And you can see boost spec as well, like this. And I also have a roto. Like I said, this roto is here, so it's isolated in case you want to, just have the roto by itself. But in this case, I could turn off the roto so you can kind of see the two mixing here. So here's the diffuse, and again, you can turn these off individually if you just want the spec or diffuse or the combination of the two. You can do that, and then there's a couple other options down here, and then you have the mix, and then you can just plus that over. Obviously this looks horrible, but you can kind of start playing with this, or just turn off diffuse, and now you have this specularity, which you can come in here with. And again, there's different options on each one, and then you have like anti-aliasing, so you can kind of anti-alias these a little bit better, so they're it's not too harsh, but you can kind of see the difference there. So I hope you guys hope that helps understand what the preference pass is, or the position reference pass. Again, the AKA pass that you see people use in regards to having lights or things stick on the character. And again, I hope just keep trudging forward here and introducing new tools.